Hello everybody, here we are today and we're going to be talking about Sam Reinhart and whether or not the Florida Panthers should be worried that he is a unrestricted free agent after this season. So before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So Sam Reinhart is in his third season with the Florida Panthers, and this comes after spending technically 7 seasons with the Buffalo Sabres. In his time with Buffalo, he ended up having 295 points and 454 career games, and had a stretch over his final 4 seasons in Buffalo where he either hit 50 points or was on a 50-plus point pace in that respective season. So good things there, and you got to remember too that the teams he was on in Buffalo weren't exactly loaded, or teams that were expected to do a whole lot weren't able to make the playoffs, obviously, in that run. However, Sam was able to produce, and things were good there. Since coming from Buffalo and going to Florida, he went from averaging 0.65 points per game to 0.98. So that's a good thing. He has 194 points in 197 games played. However, you have to realize that when you're averaging almost a point per game as a player, that's going to spark some talk about what you're worth and what you're going to be asking for in free agency, which is something Florida's got to be worried about a little bit here because, again, he is a UFA after this season, and again is averaging over a point per game this year. So looking at this, what is the biggest concern right now in Florida's eyes about being able to re-sign him? Just off some things we're going to look at, I think the biggest thing here is the fact that the Panthers have a few big contracts that they have to worry about, that being Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, they have Aaron Ekblad, and then they have Sergei Bobrovsky. Those are 4 guys that have a decent amount of money tied up into them. Barkov, obviously, big contract. Bob, big contract. Tkachuk, big contract. And then Ekblad, I think, is just got one more year after this season under the books. However, he has played a big role for this team in years past, and, has a big tie and relationship to this organization. So 4 players right there that are on the books going into next season with a lot of cap and not a lot of money to spread the wealth around in other areas, especially when you have a guy like Reinhart that is probably going to be looking for a decent amount of money in this upcoming offseason. And of course, money is what makes the world go round, as they say, and this is where you start to wonder a little bit, could the Panthers even make something happen if Reinhart was going to be able to take a team discount or something like that? I don't know, because we're looking at what Sam's been able to do over the past 3 seasons with Florida, and things have been going pretty well for him. Again, when you're able to have almost 200 points in 200 games played, or about that pace, you're going to be set to get paid. And over the past 3 seasons, he ranks 25th in the league for points, something that is very big for him there too. And my biggest concern for Florida is, let's say that Sam realizes, hey, I am 28 years old, or I will be 28 years old. You might be 28 already now. By the time that the contract is over, this is my last big chance to get paid. I've been playing very well for a while now. I feel that I could go out there and get one big contract that is going to set me up for not only now, but for the rest of my life. And that is a very real thing that players are probably aware of, because this deal that he could be looking for could push well into his mid-30s. And I do kind of wonder if Reinhart could be a player that ends up getting more money than maybe some people view that he's worth. Right now in this season, he has played 374 minutes with Alexander Barkov at 5-on-5 minutes this year, and in that time things have gone pretty well. They've been able to outscore the opposition pretty well. However, in the 100 minutes without Alexander Barkov, he went from having 28 goals on ice when Reinhart was there with Barkov to 0. So 28 in 374 minutes to 0 in 100 minutes. So that is a little bit concerning there. And his expected goals for percentage did dip when he was away from Barkov. However, the good news is that it did stay above 50%. There are some other concerns too, though, if you're looking at a guy like Sam and saying, okay, well, maybe he needs Barkov in order to produce at this top level. And those other concerns would probably relate to, what is he doing right now? What is he going to be for a team that might not have a Barkov-esque player? Because looking at all 3 zones, it seems like from what we're getting with Reinhart, he is somebody that if he does get the puck into their own end, a lot of it is dump ends. He's not a guy that really has to be expected to carry the puck into their end of the zone. Not a guy that's going to be doing a lot of zone exits, stuff like that, and that is a little bit concerning, because let's say you have a team that goes out there and pays to get him, and they say, we need you to be the guy to go out there and get zone entries. Could he do it? That is something that is remaining to be seen because, again, how loaded is this team? Is he going to be the top level player for this club? Is he going to be expected to do this night in and night out? And how would that work? On top of that, too, I do worry a little bit with the fact that he's not a guy that's going to go out there and block a crazy amount of shots or lay a big amount of hits. And if you get the wrong coach, they certainly have this culture mindset where every player is the same, therefore they have to do this in order to be successful. And if you don't do things like lay hits consistently or, block shots consistently, you don't fit into the scheme. So that would be my biggest concern right there too. Culturally, how would that work in there? And then again, like I said, just the stuff like, is he expected to be the go-to guy to get the puck into the offensive zone? But I will say this about Sam too. Again, we've seen a very productive career from him already. He was a guy that was able to produce some decent seasons without a lot of talent in Buffalo. Yes, there were some years that he was able to play with some good players, but even still, looking at some of those seasons where he's able to collect 50 points when this team was just down in the dumps is something that you could say, well, even if he's on a bad team, he is still able to produce. And he's somebody that will go out there, he will play on the PK, he will get you a lot of goals on the power play. He's probably going to have one of the highest shooting percentages in the league over the past 3 years when it comes to the man advantage. And he is somebody that, of course, will go out there and play a lot of 5-on-5 minutes as well. So with all of this being said, I think that the Panthers probably should be concerned because of the fact that they have some money tied up in some other players. Out of the four that I talked about earlier, I do think that there's one that is a little bit more expendable than the others, or at least that I think is going to be more expendable in their eyes. However, looking at this too, even if you go by a simple stat standard and have a GM that's a little bit old school, they could say produced on a bad team in Buffalo, was able to have a peak in his time with Florida, and is somebody that we need absolutely to get things turned around. So with that, I guess you could argue, hey, again, great time, a great shooting percentage on the power play, a guy that is probably going to be hitting that career peak, his prime, if you will, and is somebody that if he ages, maybe he could continue to perform even if it's not at a point per game pace. However, I will say my biggest concern with this is not that he could get paid a decent amount of money, it's how long he could get paid, because again, being a guy that would probably be looking for a long-term deal that would stretch into his mid-30s, how productive would he be? And on top of that too, if I'm really being honest about Sam, while I really like him as a player and I love watching what he's been able to do in Buffalo and Florida, I view him more as a complementary piece, which I think a lot of people do as well. But I think for certain GMs, when they start to feel the pressure a little bit, or they say we need a savvy signing, having a guy like Reinhart out there on the market would be something that would be really appealing, knowing that a team like Florida may not be able to try to retain him even if he wanted to stay. So you could say, oh, we've got this shiny toy out there on the market. I want it. I've seen what it can do in other areas, and I have to get the toy being Reinhart in this instance, and we could see him getting paid. So the Panthers, if you want to be honest, probably should be somewhat concerned that Reinhart could be gone. But at the same time, too, I guess if you just want to ride with the good times and see what happens here with the playoffs and all that stuff, and see what other discussions they could make about how they want to move things around financially within the team, that could be something to watch out for as well. But anyway, those are just my thoughts on Sam Reinhart and the Florida Panthers as of late. So let me know what you think for Sam. Do you think that the Panthers would be able to move money around and be able to retain him? Do you think that he is going to be gone? What teams do you think would be interested? How much do you think he should ask for? Because again, he can play on the PK and just all those things. And he is not one of those forwards that just has atrocious defensive metrics. So all those things kind of play a factor here. Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.